G'day folks, Jason Costigan here and welcome to Bushbeat. This week coming out of Wagga Wagga, the capital of the Riverina in southern New South Wales, the city of crows, the city of good sports, headquarters of Group 9 Rugby League, and the place I used to call home when I first came to New South Wales from the tropics of Queensland. That was many moons ago. My special guest here in Wagga, record-breaking Group 9 referee Scott Muir, he's coming up on the show today. But after the break, we'll check out the latest results across New South Wales from the Murray to the Tweed. That's next on Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com, where we talk country rugby league from Canowindra to Cairns and Temora to Townsville. As I say every week, covering more ground than Burke and Wills. This week's show coming out of Wagga in southern New South Wales as we continue to take Bushbeat on the road. And yes, in the coming weeks, we'll be in my home state of Queensland, which reminds me we'll have some news about Queensland, and that'll be coming up, obviously, in our Queensland segment. But right now, let's talk about New South Wales as we get set for the King's Birthday long weekend and check out the results, the latest results across New South Wales. Firstly, in Newcastle, and the Denton Cup continues. Round 7 last weekend, and in the first of the Coalfields derbies for the season, Curry won 18-14 at Cessnock. Elsewhere, Lakes United 46, Souths 12. Northern Hawks shot down at the entrance, the Tigers winning 24-4. Western Suburbs 24-18 victors against the visiting Butcher Boys. And at Maitland, 18-all between the Pickers and Wyong. To the table, the Rosellas and the Goannas, first and second respectively, on 10 points. Maitland on 9, and then 3 teams on 8. Lakes United, South Newcastle and Curry. Wyong on 7. Next is the entrance of Macquarie on 6, and then Central on 2. Followed by the Hawks on 0. Now this weekend, unlike most places, the season continues in Newcastle. 4 games on Saturday starting at 3 o'clock. Lakes United hosting the Pickers. The battling Butcher Boys off to Curry. Wyong v Macquarie at Morrie Breen Oval. And Souths at home to the Goannas. And then on Sunday, also from 3 o'clock, we've got Western Suburbs at the entrance. In the Northern Rivers, only 4 of the 7 matches played last weekend. At least that's what they're saying. Costigan defeated visiting Tweed Heads 18-12. At Byron Bay, the Red Devils beat Tweed Coast 24-14. At Yamba, Lower Clarence got the chocolates against Northern United 24 points to 16. And Bilambil came away from Lismore with a 10-0 victory over Maris Brothers. And as for the latter, Costigan and Bilambil both undefeated, but Hornets on 14 and Jets on 10. Evans Head on 8 points, Kyogle and Mullumbimby on 6. And then on 4 points, we've got Ballina, Murwillumbah, Lower Clarence and Tweed Coast. Maris Brothers on 3, Tweed Heads and Byron Bay on 2, Casino 1, and Northern United on 0 after 4 losses. To Group 2, last weekend success for all 3 away teams. Nambucca Heads 16-8 against the Coffs Comets, South Grafton 14-4 at Maxville, and Woolgoolga 22-12 against Sawtell. The Group 2 table, Woolgoolga and Nambucca on 9, Sawtell and South Grafton on 7, Maxville 4, and on 3 points we've got Grafton Ghosts and Coffs Comets. In Group 3, no footy last weekend and only 1 game coming up over the King's Birthday long weekend, and that's on Monday afternoon from 2:30 when Wingham host Port City in a catch-up game from round 2. The ladder, as it stands right now, Port Macquarie and Macleay Valley on 6, Ulbar and Wingham on 4, and then on 0, Warhope, Port City, Taree City and Fosterton Curry. To the Central Coast, last weekend, round 3 catch-up matches. Erina won 38-0 at Ourimbah. Wyong won 16-8 at Toukley. Terrigal beat visiting Berkeley Vale 20 points to 6. And Woy Woy won 26-22 at Kincumber. To the latter, Erina on 10 points after winning 5 matches from 5 starts. Wyong on 8, Toukley and the entrance on 6, then 4 teams on 4, Kincumber, Woy Woy, Berkeley Vale and Terrigal, and Ourimbah on 2. Now this Sunday, Kincumber is off to Berkeley Vale, Terrigal hosting Ourimbah, Wyong at Erina, and Woy Woy welcome the entrance. All those games start, by the way, at 3:05 p.m. To the Illawarra and the Harrigan Cup Round 6 results. Western Suburbs 14 defeated Collegians 10 at Sid Parish Park. De La Salle 22-18 winners over Thirroul at Thomas Gibson Park before the place gets rebuilt, so to speak. And Dapto, the Canaries, playing at home, 38-10 winners over Corrimal. To the latter, Collies and Wests on 8, De La Salle 6, Dapto and Thirroul on 4, and Corrimal on 0. To Group 7, last weekend after our visit to that part of the world, they had their first ever Magic Round. 4 matches played at Artie Smith Oval at Bomaderry. and over 3,000 people coming through the gates. A very good promotion indeed, and hats off to Ashton Sims and all concerned. And as for the results, under lights, Stingrays defeating Gerringong 10 points to 6. Tim Laffey, one of the try scorers for the Rays. In the earlier matches, Shellharbour defeated Narrabomberderry 32 points to 16. Albion Park Oak Flats 42, Jamboree 12, and Milton Ulladulla too good for Berry Shoalhaven Heads 40 points to 12. And great news off the field with the famous Warilla Gorillas now chasing a coach for first grade for next season. Stay tuned for more. To the MacArthur, and Narellan's nightmare season continued last Sunday, conceded 50 points, the Jets, against Collegians. 50 to 16 it was the final score at Narellan Sports Ground. And at the same time, last year's premiers and Clayton Cup winners Camden won 50 points to 12 on the road against Thirlmere. East Campbelltown beat the visiting Goannas 36-26. Oakdale Workers at home defeated Mittagong 34-16, and the Oaks, the Tigers, while they were too good for Picton, 30 points to 16. To the latter, undefeated Camden on 16 points, Oakdale 12, the Oaks and Collegians on 10, Picton, Mittagong and Roos on 8, East Campbelltown, Thirlmere and the Goannas on 6, and Narellan, of course, on 0. And we understand well and truly under the microscope of the New South Wales Rugby League. To Group 16, last weekend, Merimbula Pambula won 46-16 at Batemans Bay. At the Tathra Country Club, the Eagles 42-14 winners over Bombala. At Maruya, the Sharks 26-6 over Narooma. And up at Cooma on the first day of winter, in a place where brass monkey weather is nothing new, of course, the Stallions 14-8 over Bega. To the latter, Merimbula Pambula on 10 points, Tathra 8, both the Dogs and the Eagles, by the way, undefeated. Then Eden on 8, Narooma 5, Cooma, Bega and Maruya on 4, Bombala 3 and Batemans Bay on 2. In Group 9, in the Riverina, after having bench player Eli Crozier suspended for 2 matches for that cannonball tackle against the Pickers, Junee on the road went very close against Albury at Greenfield Park last weekend. Close but no cigar, the Thunder 40 points to 36 over the Diesels. At Twickenham, Roos flogged Tumut 50-0, Temora 24-22 over visiting Young, Gundagai 56-10 winners on the road against Brothers, and Cootamundra with their second win of the season in their comeback season. Good on them. 24-4 over South City. And that game at Cooter, by the way, refereed by record-breaking whistleblower Scott Muir, who's joining me very shortly here in Wagga on Bushbeat. To the latter, Roos 7 from 7 on 14 points, Temora and Gundagai on 10, Tumut 9, Young on 8, followed by Albury 7, and then on 4 points, South City, Cootamundra and Junee, and Brothers on 0. To Group 4, the Moree Boars won 22-14 last weekend at North Tamworth. Boggabri beat visiting Gunnedah 24-20. Dungowan won 20-16 at Weewar. And at Werris Creek, the good old railway town of Werris Creek, the Magpies 42-4 winners over Cootie. And after 6 rounds in Group 4, Werris Creek on top on 11 points, Gunnedah 9, Moree Boars 8, North Tamworth and Boggabri 7, Dungowan 4, Cootie on 2 and Weewar on 0. In Group 19, the Moree Boomerangs 40 points to 18 last weekend over visiting Narwin. At Glen Innes, the Magpies 30-12 over Tinga. Inverell won 42 points to 28 at Gyra, and a 28-all draw at Urella between the Tigers and Warrielda. To the latter, Inverell and Glen Innes on 14, Tinga 11, Gyra 9, Boomerangs and Narwin on 6, the Wombats on 5, and the Tigers on 3. In Group 20 last weekend, West Wyalong's first win for the season. Well done to the Mallee men. 30-18 over TLU Sharks at Ron Crow Oval. The Blue Heelers beat the Black and Whites 30 points to 10 at Yenda. The Waratahs won 30-22 at Hay, so the referees must have gone back there after all. And Leeton won 28-24 at Yanko. To the latter, Waratahs 14, Leeton 10, Yanko 9, Yenda 8, Hay 7, DPC 6, Black and White 6, TLU 4, and West Wyalong on 4 as well. In Group 21, in the Hunter Valley, Musselbrook won 38-22 at Aberdeen, Singleton 26-6 winners at home against Denman, and Greta Brankston won 34-24 up at Scone. To the latter, the Colts, Rams and Greys on 6, Scone, Aberdeen and Denman on 2. To the Central West and the Peter McDonald Premiership last weekend, Dubbo Sims 12, Mudgee 26, Panthers 30, Macquarie 34, Ningen 18, Orange Hawks 12, Forbes 44, St Pat's 20, Lithgow Workies 26, Wellington 18, Orange Sims 36, Parks 26. This weekend, just the one game. It's being played at Jock Colley Field, where Parks entertained Forbes on Sunday afternoon from 2 o'clock. And the ladder, as it stands right now in the PMP, Forbes and Mudgee leading the way on 10 points. Then Dubbo Sims, St Pat's, Wellington and Orange Sims all on 8 points. Macquarie on 6. Hawks, Ningen and Parks on 4. Lithgow on 2 after that shock win against the Cowboys. And the Panthers on 0. To the Woodbridge Cup, Oberon won 42-0 last weekend at Trundle at Wade Park. Orange United 52-18 winners over Cargo. Molong beat visiting Grenfell 54-16. At Condo, the Rams defeated Cowra 30 points to 26. And at Canowindra, the Tigers 34-22 over Eugowra. To the ladder, Manildra, Oberon and Cowra on 12 points. Molong 11, Orange United 10, Canowindra, Eugowra and Condo on 8. Trundle 6, Peak Hill 5, Cargo 4 and Grenfell 2, and getting ready for the Henry Lawson Festival. To the Castlereagh League, Coolah 34 defeated Barradine 14. Narromine defeated visiting Gulgong 34-24. At Cobar, the Roosters 36-22 over Dunedoo. And at Warren, 26 apiece between the Bulldogs and the Coonamble Bears. After 6 rounds, undefeated Coolah on 18, Coonabarabran on 16, Gulgong and Cobar 14, Narromine 13, Coonamble 12, Dunedoo 10, Warren 9 and Barradine 8. To the Pro 10 Cup, last weekend all roads led to Barellan for the second round of fixtures. Ivanhoe beat Narrandera 20 points to 10, Gilgowie 54-2 over Deniliquin, and Barellan 24-6 winners against Rankin Springs. To the ladder, Barellan and Ivanhoe both undefeated on 4 points. Hillston also undefeated and in third spot on 2. Gilgowie and Rankin Springs on 2. Narrandera and Denny on 0. To the ACT and the Canberra Raiders Cup, Woden Valley Rams celebrated the opening of their new clubhouse last weekend with victory over the Queanbeyan Blues. 14 points to 10 the final score. In the other round 8 fixtures, Tuggeranong and Yass recorded their first wins of the season. The Bushrangers winning 32 points to 4 at Goulburn, and the Magpies 28-18 over Belconnen United at Walker Park. And at Raiders Belconnen, Queanbeyan Roos beat the Warriors 16 blot. And as for the table, Roos and Blues first and second respectively on 10 points. West Belconnen on 9, Woden Valley 7, Gungahlin and Belconnen United on 6, Goulburn 4, Tuggeranong and Yass on 2, and remarkably, Yass obviously running last, but Cody Bell from the Magpies is the league's top try scorer with 9. Well done, Cody. And finally to the George Took Shield and the Snowy River Bears. Well, they got flogged at Burrawa last weekend, 60 points to 16. The Rovers over the GTS newcomers. North Canberra got cooked at Crookwell. The Green Devils winning 34 points to 8. Stars played Bynalong at Raiders Belconnen and the Brahmins won 42-16. And a grand final rematch between the Tigers and Harden Hawks at Bungendore. Tigers winning 28 points to 16. To the GTS ladder, Bungendore on 7, the Rovers and Hawks on 6, Brahmins 5, Snowy River Bears on 4, Crookwell and North Canberra on 2, and the Googong Goannas and UC Stars on 0. Time for a break here on Bushbeat. Up next, here in Wagga, we catch up with record-breaking Group 9 referee Scott Muir, the man with the whistle. He's next on Bushbeat. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. I'm Jason Costigan, and my special guest here in the City of Crows is Scott Muir, the record-breaking Group 9 referee. Scott, you've refereed at a lot of venues across, not only Group 9, but far and wide. Tell us about some of your favourite venues and why.
Thanks, Costo. Yeah, I have to say Eric Weisel Oval, where I made my my first grand final, actually, back in 1995. There's a lot of history involved with that, so that's quite a significant ground. The new ground here in Wagga at McDonald's Park or Geofix, that's a great rugby league facility. I've had an opportunity when I was down in Sydney trying to get into the rep system, refereeing at Brookvale Oval, Redfern, places like that. So there's some great grounds And I guess refereeing affords you that opportunity. I mean, as a player, I wouldn't have played on any of those grounds, and I certainly wouldn't have played 394 first grade games. So refereeing affords you a lot of opportunity to see a lot of places and meet a lot of people, experience some really, really great footy.
You mentioned Brookvale, you mentioned Redfern. Was there ever a stage where there was perhaps an opportunity for you to take up refereeing as a profession? Things are very different now to compare to your day, but what was it in terms of your story?
Yeah, that's another good question there. It's back in the day, but the pathways are so different like you have today. Like I was doing first grade in Group 9, work opportunity, I went down, got in the rep system. My first centre was an under-14s. And at that particular time, I've gone, oh, okay, bit of a road ahead of me here. Sort of progressed through, got to A grade, got seen, and then as it turned out, even being a country boy, working in the city, working 40, 50 hours a week, travelling, training 4 nights a week, refereeing all weekend, it was a very huge adjustment. As it turns out, I was established myself in the junior reps and actually tore a hamstring. And then got a little bit depleted. Didn't really have a mentor down there, being relatively new, that you could sort of lean on and work through it. So took a bit of an easy option, unfortunately, and basically end up coming back home. And as it turns out, still able to referee for 30 seasons and do 394 first grade games. So that was still an opportunity there, I guess.
You mentioned Eric Weisel Oval before, and great memories for myself as well as a broadcaster when I came to this part of the world many moons ago. Is it a shame, a crying shame? I'm sure I know what the answer is, that it's not there anymore. People still talk about the loss of Eric Weisel Oval. It really impacted on the rugby league community, not just in Wagga, but across southern New South Wales.
Definitely. It's so much history there. I mean, you played test matches and so many iconic grand finals. And, a gentleman that's synonymous in the Riverina, Eric Weisel, I think it was named after him in like July 1959, if my history's correct. And then, the legend sort of continued. We still have Eric's grandson comes to the Eric Weisel medal and speaks highly and speaks a little bit of history there. So,
and that's for the Player of the Year. That's your version, Group 9's version of the Dally M.
Yes, it is. Yes, Player of the Year, the best player, voted by the referees actually for the best player in the Group 9 for that particular season.
And speaking of best player, who's the best player that Scott Muir has ever come across as a referee? Someone that perhaps it might be best if they've now put the cue in the rack. We don't want to be causing any issues for you in the back end of the season, but over 30-odd years, you must have come across some great players, albeit some of them at the back end of their careers.
Yeah, definitely. My first question is which decade best player? When I first started, a gentleman called Steve McDonald, played for Wagga Kangaroos, played country as an 18-year-old. He had so much to offer and so good on the field and a very hard player. I came in an area when you had, Alan McIndoe, you had Brad Tasman, Les Boyd, of course. You had a lot of ex-ARL players coming into the group. And then you had a decade where Brett Goldsmith came and Captain Coach Tumut. You had Steve Reardon, you had Mark Stimson, Lou Goodwin, and then you had another transition with Daniel Fitzhenry. Came down and changed the South City club. So it's been so many good players that you could possibly name. So, but for one, I think the one that really took impression would have been Steve McDonald.
When you look at the pathways that are available for referees today, what's your message to an up and coming referee? If you turn back the clock and put yourself in that position, but I'm sure there's plenty of young whistleblowers out there that want to be the next Ashley Klein or Adam G and so forth, and for that matter, maybe even locally, the next Scott Muir. What's your advice to the up and coming whistleblowers? I
would say persistence, and you've got to be committed. Again, like there's pathways for players, there is for referees now, but there's so many at a starting level. It's not many. I think only 4% actually make the NRL as you work your way through the pathways. But certainly persistence. You need to be fit. You need to be focused. You need to have a mentor in your corner. Everyone's in your corner when things are going well. That's when things aren't, that you need that person you can talk to, not just about rugby league, just about life and things like that. And I think if you can persevere in junior footy for at least 3 seasons, you're well on your way. Senior footy, you've got to get to that 3 and 5th year once you've made that 5th year, and by that stage you could well be in first grade, even as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, and then provides more opportunity, more experience as you go down to Sydney or hand-picked from the country.
Scott, I've got to ask you about your own refereeing style. Who did you model yourself on? Was it someone like Bill Harrigan, Steve Clark, Mr. Bean, Sean Hampstead, Greg Hartley, maybe a bit of everyone? Or is this just doing it your own way?
Well, again, I was fortunate that, I had Fletch, different refereeing styles.
So this is Tony Fletcher, the referee's boss, as we speak here in Group 9.
Yes, he taught me a lot of things about man management and handling some characters on the field. My actual refereeing style, I tailed on a guy called Bruce Jacobson from Junee. He actually refereed a country final in 92, so a very established referee, did quite a few grand finals. I established my style on that because I did a lot of 18s, he did a lot of first grade, so I got to watch him a lot. NRL-wise, or ARL, was David Manson from Queensland. I liked his style and how he communicated. So,
what about that game? He was involved in that fire and brimstone Origin match. Obviously, that flashpoint between the King Wally Lewis and Benny Elias. I can see you nodding here. Geez, he kept a cool head.
Definitely did, and that's where when you're in those moments, as a referee, the heart rate's got to come down as the emotions go up, and that's a skill and something very tricky to do. But you got to have the right temperament, you got to have the right approach, and there's certainly the moments where you've really got to keep you cool. So it's certainly taught me a lot, just even watching him and watching his style. Now,
before we finish up, I have to ask you this: there's been a lot of talk recently, particularly in bush footy, about referee abuse. You know what happened in the Western Riverina, or at least you can go by the media reports, the referees walking off the field because they'd had enough. There's been drama, a lot of drama. In fact, up on the Sunshine Coast, I think I said on rugbyleague.com, they've had more issues up there with the referees than 60 Minutes. So much abuse. And I want to ask you, what's your answer to this? How do we nip it in the bud?
That's an excellent question, and certainly my personal opinion. And I think it's changed. I actually think it's a society problem as well as a rugby league problem. I think back in the day, look, people did get upset. There was a lot of banter, but you had the weekend where it all blew over, and then once you didn't read it in the paper, then you're on to the next weekend. I think the issue we have now is certainly social media, and whether we like it or not, we do read it, and that can certainly create a lot of pressure there. I mean, people by a stroke of a couple of, even on a keyboard, they can be 11 out of 10 venting and ranting, and they don't even know who that person is. Certainly a tricky problem. You've got to have the backing of your association. There's got to be a strong stance. If there is cases of abuse, you've got to back the association. You've got to back the young referees. I also feel that some of the issues that you do have is just the support that you necessarily don't get. People sort of want to just toss it to the side and say, look, that's just rugby league. You just need to move on. So
you're suggesting, without getting into the nitty-gritty here, if people are found guilty of abusing referees, and we're talking serious stuff here, rub them out.
Yeah, exactly right. You need to set an example, dare I say, and it's the kids that suffer. I mean, even as a senior referee, I've probably had 2 incidents that were pretty unsavoury, but managed to get through it. But I just feel that, yes, it is a society problem, but there's some things that people say at a footy field that you couldn't say down the main street of Baylor Street or Wagga. You'd be arrested for it. So we need to set some standards. We're probably fortunate that if you are that way inclined, that you'll be on a phone, you'll be filmed, you'll be on social media. So you're probably, to a degree, made an example of.
Geez, we covered some ground. Appreciate your candid thoughts on this matter, and look, again, congratulations on behalf of the wider rugby league community, particularly people here, some of our mutual friends in the Riverina, on your achievements, and not just last weekend, but you've got the record. Well done, and happy birthday as well.
Thanks so much, Costo. I appreciate your time, I I appreciate it, and we'll just see how we go and go into next week and go from there.
There he is, the record-breaking Group 9 referee Scott Muir here on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com. Stay with us, more to come right after this. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. Time now for our Queensland segment, but before we get into it, to my fellow Queenslanders, I got to say for tomorrow, Friday the 6th of June, I must say to you, happy Queensland Day. Now, for those unaware, it's the anniversary of the day that we officially broke away from New South Wales. That was way back in 1859. So to my fellow banana benders for tomorrow, the 6th of June, again, happy Queensland Day. Now to the footy, and firstly in far north Queensland, last weekend, Suburbs beat Roos 24-22 at Ali Park. Cairns Brothers won 38-14 against Mareeba up on the Tablelands. At Smithfield, Ivanhoe's defeated Innisfail Leprechauns 26-18. Atherton belted the Storm 72-4 at Peterson Park. And at Tully, the Tigers won a high-scoring affair against Yarrabah, 44 points to 36. To the latter, undefeated Suburbs on 18, Atherton and Cairns Brothers 16, Mareeba and Mossman 11, Innisfail 10, Hose 8, Roos and Tully 6, Yarrabah 4 and the Storm on 2. This Saturday in round 10, we've got Cairns Brothers v Suburbs at Barlow Park from 3:20. Then from 6 o'clock, Mossman at Atherton as Tully host Edmonton. And then on Sunday from 3 o'clock, Mareeba at Yarrabah and Roos at home to Innisfail. In the Townsville competition last weekend at Charters Towers, the Miners 24-18 over Herbert River. Western Lions on the road edged out Norths 34-32. And down in the Burdekin, the Roosters 36-24 over Centrals. Speaking of which, Centrals have proudly paraded their Indigenous jersey, I see, ahead of this coming weekend. And I've got to say, it looks pretty damn deadly. So well done to all concerned at Centrals. To the latter, Souths 10, Brothers and the Towers on 8, Herbert River and North 6, Burdekin 4, Centrals 2, and now Western Lions on 2 after that win last weekend. This Saturday at 3:10 at the Sports Reserve, we've got Centrals v Norths. Then at 4:30, it's Burdekin hosting the Towers. And on Sunday from 12:30, Souths v Brothers at the old home of Bindle Sharks. And then from 3:30, it's Western Lions hosting Herbert River. In the Mackay competition last weekend, Souths 34-4 winners over Wests. Brothers shaded Magpies 24-22. And Serena's first win of the season, 28-12 over Whitsunday. To the latter, Souths and Moranbah on 10, Brothers 8, Magpies 6, West 6, Serena 4, and Whitsunday 2. This Saturday, Magpies head up to Prossie to play the Brahmins, as Serena hit the road to face the Miners. Those games starting at 6:30 and 7:30pm respectively. And then on Sunday from 3 o'clock, it's Brothers hosting Wests. In Mount Isa, in the northwest of the state, we've got some big news here to share. But first up, last weekend, Wanderers beat Townies 36-30. And it's back on again between these old rivals tomorrow night. That's Friday night from 7:30 under lights at Alec Inch. And as for the big news, I'm pleased to say that rugbyleague.com will be broadcasting the Mount Isa Grand Final between Townies and Wanderers on Sunday, the 22nd of June. And you'll be able to hear it live and free right here on rugbyleague.com. To the Central West, huge drama in the past few days with the rep team unable to get enough players for the trip to Bundy for the 47th Battalion. Now, last we heard, 6 players from 3 clubs were in the firing line. Those clubs, by the way, Barcall and Sangoenas, the Blackall Magpies, and the Longreach Ilfracombe Tigers. And the talk is that these players could be suspended because they apparently did not have a genuine reason for skipping the trip to Bundy. Quite embarrassing, I've got to say, for the Central West Rugby League. They've never been to the 47th Battalion before, and after this debacle, they won't be invited back. Well, you wouldn't think so. Mind you, in many ways, the penny-pinching QRL only has themselves to blame. After all, they did get rid of the Outback muster, which was very popular in those western communities. And it's a real shame we're talking about this, because we could be talking about the $37,000 raised by the Tigers, that's the Longreach Ilfracombe Tigers, for cerebral palsy. But instead we're talking about those boys or young men that have effectively brought shame to the Central West. On the field, defending premiers Blackall won 22-18 last weekend at Barkey, as Longreach Ilfracombe won 38-16 at home against Alpha. And the final standings, Barkey on 12 points as minor premiers, Blackall 10, Tigers 8, Brumbies 5, and Winton's Diamantina Devils on 5 as well and getting the wooden spoon. To the Central Highlands last weekend in the big local derby, Tigers 26-18 over Brothers, Bluff won 36-22 at Springshaw and Middlemount 26-6 winners at Blackwater. The latter, Bluff 14, Brothers and Middlemount 12, Tigers 9, Springshaw 8, Blackwater 7, Claremont 6, Peak Downs 4. This Saturday at 7 o'clock, we've got the Bears hosting the Pirates as the Bunnies and the Panthers clash at Bluff. In Rockhampton, the NRG Industrial Premiership is in utter chaos. 2 forfeits last weekend. In the matches that did proceed, Yeppoon beat visiting Cap Coast rivals Emu Park 24-0 before Rocky Brothers won 22-8 against Valleys in Gladstone. Elsewhere, Tennant Sands a no-show at Norths. It was pretty well documented. And likewise Fitzroy's at Gladstone Brothers. The latter, Rocky Brothers on top on 13, Emu Park 10, Norths 9, Yeppoon 8, Gladstone Brothers 6, Valleys 5, Tennant Sands 2, Fitzroy's 1. This weekend, the Rocky Rustlers off to Bundy for the 47th Battalion, like a lot of rep teams. And get this, they picked Jalen Gray from Norths. The only problem is he's actually been back in WA. That's right, on the other side of the country for the past 2 weeks, playing club footy in Perth. Yet he's got picked in the rep side for Rocky. How embarrassing for the Rockhampton Rugby League. To the Northern Districts, last weekend, Gin beat Miriamvale 34-26 and Calliope defeated the Marlins 16-12. Those games on the Discovery Coast. And Avondale, who are running third, a no-show against South Callan. Yes, another forfeit. The latter, Isis Devils on 16, South Callan 12, Avondale 10, Gin 8, Calliope and Miriamvale on 6, and the Marlins on 2. In the rum capital of Bundaberg, last weekend at Salter Oval, West beat East 26-24, and at the same venue, Waves 28-6 over Brothers. And in the heritage city of Maryborough, 26-all between Wallaroos and Harvey Bay. The latter, Waves 13, Brothers 9, Roos 7, East 6, the Bay 5, West 2. To the Central Burnett last weekend, some serious doubts about the future of the Monto Roos. They ran out of players and their game had to be called off early, with Biggendon leading 44-0. In the other match at Eidsvold, Mundubbera thrashed the Eagles 66 points to 8. The latter, Gayndah on top on 14, Biggendon 11, Mundubbera 9, Monto 6, Eidsvold 2. In the neighbouring South Burnett, Kingaroy last weekend 52-22 over Mergen and Cherbourg 62-14 over Wandai. Both those matches played at Wandai, by the way. And the latter, Cherbourg on top on 11, Kingaroy 6, Wandai 4, Mergen 3. On the sunny coast last weekend, the Bulldogs won 32-10 at Nambour. Coolum beat Noosa 24-16 at Tewantin. Caloundra won 34-6 at Caboolture, and Maroochydore won 30-24 at Kawana. The latter, Stanley River and Coolum on 28, Swans and Dogs 20, Noosa 16, Kawana 12, Sharks 8, Roosters and Snakes 4. And if you think that sounds a bit odd, that's how they roll on the sunny coast with their competition table. Looking ahead, catch-up games this Saturday at Kawana, Dolphins and Dogs, as the Pirates host the Sharks. Both those matches starting at 5:30. Caboolture at Nambour from 3 o'clock, as the Wolves and Colts clash at Woodford on Sunday. In Ipswich, Brothers last weekend 30-10 over visiting Fassifern Bombers. Norths at home 18-16 winners over West End. And at the North Ipswich Reserve, the Jets 30 beat Redbank Plains 20. The latter is quite interesting. We've got Jets, Brothers and Bombers all on 6. And then Redbank Plains and Norths on 5 and West End on 2. This Saturday, West End on the road to play the Bombers as Norths visit Redbank Plains. Kick-off for both is 6 o'clock. And then on Sunday at 3 p.m, Brothers welcome the Jets. On the Darling Downs in Toowoomba, Gundawindi won 34-18 last weekend at Highfields. The Boars playing most of the match with 12 men. In fact, at one stage, they were down to 11. At the Chook Pen, Valleys 48-24 over Oakey. Gatton won 22-18 at Warwick. Brothers prevailed 24-12 at Pittsworth. And at Platts Oval, Wattles brushed aside Souths 52-20. Undefeated Gatton on top on 16. Wattles 12, Brothers 10. Warwick and Valleys 8. Gundawindi and Dolby 7. Pittsworth and Oakey 4. Highfields and Souths on 2. In the Roma competition last weekend, Miles 34-18 winners over the visiting Battlers. At St George, the Dragons 28-8 over Mitchell. Cities prevail 16-8 at Jandowie. And at Wallumbilla, the Red Bulls crushed Chinchilla 56-12. City's on top on 20 points, Jandowie 16, then the Red Bulls, Devils, Bulldogs and Battlers all on 12, St George 8, Mitchell 8. In the Border Rugby League, Stanthorpe on the road last weekend defeated Inglewood 42 points to 26, and this Saturday from 2 o'clock, it's the Gremlins hosting the Roosters. The latter, Stanthorpe 4, Inglewood 2, Tenterfield 0. And finally, the Gold Coast, Currumbin beat Costigan last weekend 32-26 at Betty Diamond. Runaway Bay 36-34 winners at home against Helensvale. And get this, Burleigh Bears 110-0 against visiting Southport. Can you believe it? That is just embarrassing for the Tigers and the local game in general. The latter, Burleigh 14, Currumbin and Costigan 10, Runaway Bay 6, Helensvale 2, Southport on 0. This Sunday from 1:30pm, Costigan v Hornets, then at 3 o'clock at Southport v Runaway Bay as Burleigh welcome Currumbin. Now, before we finish our Queensland segment, just a reminder, we've got that Mount Isa Grand Final coming up here on rugbyleague.com, live and free on Sunday, the 22nd of June. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to going back to Mount Isa to call the action. For now, a quick break. When we come back, we'll check out the rest of the country right here on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com. Welcome back to our final segment of this week's episode of Bushbeat. Let's crisscross the country now, starting with Melbourne's Storm Premiership. Last weekend, the Cowboys beat the Rabbitohs 32-16. The Thunderbolts 56-18 over Sunbury, and Casey 26-20 over the Altona Roosters. The latter, the Northern Thunder on 14 points, Thunderbolts 10, Warriors and Rabbitohs on 8, Roosters and Tigers 6, and the Cowboys in the basement on 0. Staying in Victoria and in the Goulburn Murray Storm Premiership, the Shepparton Eagles smashed Wodonga Wombats 60 points to 8 last weekend, and the undefeated Tumbarumba 40 points to 4 winners over Corowa. The game between Wolfpack and Border Bears didn't proceed because the Wolfpack forfeited. The latter, Tumbarumba on 10 points, Corowa 8, Shepparton and Wangaratta on 6, the Border Bears and Wodonga Wombats on 4, and the Wolfpack on 0. In South Australia, last weekend at the Glen Eagles Reserve, Warriors 30 defeated visiting Eels 22. The Black Swans routed the Roosters 80 points to 6 at Murray Bridge, and at Mitchell Park, Souths 36-16 winners over Adelaide Plains. The latter, the Black Swans on 6 points, Eels and Souths 4, Roosters and Warriors 2, and Adelaide Plains on 0. Across the Nullarbor in the West, last weekend the Giants beat the Bears 18-14, South Perth scraped home against Freo 29-28, and North Beach chasing 3 titles on the trot, 72-10 winners at Rockingham. The latter, South Perth and North Beach on 12 points, the Bears 8, Roosters and Giants 4, Sharks 2. And this Saturday, Giants v Lions, Eagles v Bears and Roosters v Sharks, all games starting at 5:30pm. And speaking of the West, what about those local TV ratings for State of Origin number 1? And in case you missed it, the audience up 25%. That's the local audience, up 25% on last year, on the back of Perth Bears, of course, getting the green light to join the NRL. And finally, in the top end, last weekend, Brothers beat Palmerston 36-14, Nightcliff 30-22 winners over the Northern Sharks, and Litchfield wiped out South Darwin 72 points to 6. The latter, Bears and Brothers on 12, Raiders 10, Nightcliff 6, Sharks 2, South Darwin on 0. That concludes this week's episode of Bushbeat. My thanks to Scott Muir for joining us here in Wagga, and thanks also to Steve Mascord, as per usual, for getting us on air. This is Costo signing off. We'll catch you next week for another episode of Bushbeat right here on rugbyleague.com. Stay with us. The news is next.